You begin in the quiet center of the house, where stone and darkness and rain have agreed, almost ceremonially, to move slowly together for the night, and where nothing at all is urgent anymore, nothing presses against you with the pointed edge of obligation. The day has folded itself away behind closed doors and cooled embers, behind shutters and heavy curtains, and now only the softest sounds remain, drifting through the air like a long, unhurried breath that has been held for hours and is finally let go. You are in the atrium of a Roman domus, its marble floor cool beneath you, its open roof above gathering the sky into a simple, perfect rectangle that feels larger than it appears, because it frames not just clouds and stars, but the idea of the world beyond these walls. Outside, the city has dimmed to a murmur you no longer need to follow, a low, indistinct hum of conversation and footsteps, of distant wheels on stone and the occasional far-off call that reaches you only as a softened shape of sound. Inside, the house waits, calm and aware, listening to the rain it knows is coming, listening to the slowed-down footsteps of those who live within it, listening to you as you breathe. The air is a mixture of things that belong together, the faint residue of incense burned earlier in the shrine, the trace of smoke from the kitchen fire that has long since been banked, the clean, almost metallic note of wet marble, and the warm, quiet scent of olive oil slowly feeding its way up into lamp wicks. You let the other world fall back, the streets and their arguments, the forums and their speeches, the markets and their gestures, the baths and their echoing voices. You let all of it drift away, like steam fading from warm stone under evening air. In here, only the things that breathe slowly are allowed to stay with you, the faint smell of lamp smoke, the echo of water finding water, the distant creak of settling timber, the soft weight of your own body resting quietly in the dim golden light. You are safe inside these walls. The house has enclosed countless nights before this one, and tonight it encloses you. The night pressing against the roof and walls is not an enemy, it is a great, dark cloak that the house is wrapping around itself and around you, shutting out sharpness and leaving only the rounded edges of sound and shadow. As you settle your shoulders, as you let your jaw loosen and the muscles of your face soften, you feel the marble under you holding the last memory of the day's warmth, now slowly releasing it into the cool, damp air. The stone does not rush, its temperature changes with a patience that belongs to things that have seen generations pass. You exhale, long and slow, and the house seems to exhale with you. The faint draft through the compluvium stirs, a lamp flame nods, a beam in the roof gives the slightest, quietest sigh. Somewhere above, the sky thickens with clouds, and the first serious rain of the night begins to gather itself. There is, for a moment, a hush, as if even the stone is listening. At first, the rain arrives as a suggestion more than a sound, a faint uneven tapping on the tiles high above, somewhere beyond the wooden beams and terracotta roof, like fingers drumming thoughtfully on pottery. You do not see it yet, you feel it through the house, in the way the air cools almost imperceptibly against your skin, in the way a thin, fresh scent slides into the existing tapestry of smells. The night draws a deeper breath, and then, gently, the sounds gather. The soft drumming on the roof tiles becomes more insistent, a light, clear rhythm that wraps itself around the silent interior rooms, traveling along rafters and down through the spaces between them. The roof above you, cleverly sloped in its familiar geometry, rises and folds inward, guiding the rain toward the single open rectangle above the atrium, the compluvium, where the sky is invited not just to be seen, but to enter. The water accepts the invitation. It begins as a scattering of silvery threads, falling through the dark opening into the waiting marble basin of the impluvium below, each drop catching a fragment of lamplight as it passes. A brief pearl of brightness in the air, each one adding a tiny, distinct note to the growing chorus of sound. The first drops strike the water with soft, bright clicks, sending delicate rings outward over the surface, perfect circles widening and fading, only to be overwritten by new ones. The ripples overlap and blend, circles sliding through circles until the entire little pool is alive with quiet motion, its previously still surface now a slow, intricate pattern of light and shadow. You watch as reflection bends and trembles on the water, the warm flicker of lamp flame, the pale suggestion of your own outline in the polished stone edge, the dark framework of roof beams above, all of it pulled gently out of shape by the continuous touch of the falling rain. Around the edges of the impluvium, the marble lip gleams more brightly where it catches stray drops, tiny beads forming and then sliding down to join the pool. A few drops leap just far enough to land on the surrounding floor, darkening the stone in small, temporary spots, each mark a little map of the sky's path into the house. Time stretches, thins, and slows until it feels like it has become nothing more than this: falling rain, breathing air, warmed oil, cool stone, the endless repetition of water rising unseen into clouds and then returning to this exact square of sky and stone. The lamps around the atrium breathe their own slow rhythm into the night, answering the rain with their smaller, steadier light. Each flame, fed by olive oil in small ceramic bodies, leans and straightens again, as if it is listening too closely to the rain and nodding along. Their light is not strong, not harsh, it is low and amber and tender, spreading in shallow puddles across the marble and mosaic, then glancing off the water in the impluvium to paint the ceiling with trembling, liquid gold. A servant has tended them not long ago, moving carefully from lamp to lamp, trimming a wick here, pinching away a charred fragment there, topping up the reservoirs with measured pours of oil, shielding the delicate points of fire from drafts with the hollow of a hand. The faint trace of that work still lingers, in the subtle smell of fresh oil, in the neatly shaped wicks that burn without smoke. Now the lamps stand quietly where they were placed, on small tables with carefully worn corners, in wall niches shaped to cradle their bodies, beside the household shrine, each one a little island of warmth floating in the larger coolness of the house. Where their light fades, the walls deepen into a soft, velvety shadow, frescoed scenes slipping into an uncertain dusk. On one wall, a painted garden lingers just within the reach of light, slender trunks of trees rising from a band of earth-red paint, small stylized birds perched among leaves and branches, a simple columned shrine half hidden behind a painted bush. As the flame nearest to that wall flickers, the shadows of its wick and handle dance over the paint, and for a moment the birds seem to shift, as if rustling their feathers, as if lengthening their necks to listen to the rain. The painted leaves appear to stir in a breeze that exists only inside the pigment. Then the flame steadies, and the scene returns to stillness, like a dream that has just barely remembered itself and then gently forgotten once more. In the corners of the room, farther from the lamps, fresco colors gather into darker pools, wine red and deep black breathing together, traces of ochre and green hinting at columns and garlands and imagined buildings. The brightness of day, when these walls tell their stories openly, has faded into a more secret conversation of shades, one that the house shares only with those who sit with it in the late hours, when footsteps are soft and the world has grown small again. You let your bare feet rest flat on the marble floor, feeling the stone as distinctly as you hear the water. The surface is impeccably smooth, polished by decades of footsteps and careful cleaning, but to your skin it is not blank, it carries the faint coolness of the evening air, the quiet dampness that comes when a house opens itself to the rain. Somewhere beneath the polished top, within the depth of the stone, there is a slow exchange of temperature, warmth bleeding out, coolness seeping in, the marble accepting each change with unhurried patience. Near the edges of the atrium, where the floor shifts into patterned mosaic, you can feel tiny differences, the faint bumpy rhythm of small tesserae under your toes, the slight unevenness where one cube of stone rises a fraction higher than its neighbors, the subtle ridge where one slab of marble meets another along a join the eye barely sees in this light. When you flex your foot just a little, the texture changes from silky slab to grainier mosaic, from the broad chill of a single stone to the delicate, varied touch of many. As you shift your feet, the coolness flows up through your legs, calming and grounding, asking your muscles to relax, asking your spine to ease. The day leaves your body in slow, unseen spirals. The soreness of walking the streets, the ache of standing in lines and crowds, the faint heaviness left by the bath's heat or the weight of conversation, all of it slowly drains away into the stone beneath you, into the earth that supports the house, into the listening silence of the night. It is as if the marble is absorbing not just your weight, but the leftover echoes of your movements, smoothing them out the way it smooths reflected lamplight. You notice, with a soft, almost drowsy curiosity, how the floor near the impluvium is just a little cooler, just a little more damp, each drop of water that leaps out of the basin and lands nearby leaving a tiny dark mark that will soon fade. The marble there, smooth and patient, accepts these small gifts from the sky without complaint, reflecting the light a little more brightly where it is wet, becoming almost like another pool, another quiet mirror parallel to the one already cupping the rain. The faint prints of earlier footsteps, where someone crossed this space before the rain grew heavy, are already gone, wiped clean by time and moisture and the shifting play of light. Your gaze drifts toward the lararium, the household shrine, set into the wall not far from the impluvium, where the line between everyday and sacred softens rather than divides. It glows with a steadier light than the rest of the room, a lamp placed there with careful intention, its flame kept trimmed and fed so that it will not go out through the night. Within the niche, small figures of the household gods stand in quiet attention, the Laras with their lifted arms and flowing garments, the Penates, guardians of food and store, perhaps the coiled image of a protective serpent winding along the painted background. Before the lamp, someone earlier in the evening laid offerings with unhurried, familiar hands. You see the small dish of grain, each kernel catching a point of light as if it were made of tiny beads of gold rather than food, the fragment of honey cake, its rough edge darkened by the sweetness that clings to it, the small cup with a trace of wine clinging to the inside, its surface catching the lamplight where the liquid once lay. A few crushed flower petals rest on the ledge, their scent is faint now, a ghost of perfume mingling with the drier, resinous note of incense that has long since burned down to ash. The gods do not make a sound, but their stillness feels full, not empty. They simply watch, holding the memory of the day, holding the worries that were whispered up to them, holding the vows and the quiet hopes of the family that sleeps around them. The painted background of the shrine, perhaps a small temple, perhaps stylized foliage, perhaps geometric patterns, enfolds the figures like a backdrop that never changes, even as those who stand before it rise, grow older, and fade. You sit and let your eyes rest on that small, unwavering flame. The light strokes the tiny bronze or terracotta faces, slips over miniature noses and lips and brows, deepens the hollows of their eyes until they seem both empty and infinitely attentive. The shadows behind them are soft and close, like a cloak drawn over the shoulders of a friend. In this hour, the shrine is not decoration. It is a small, radiant heart, beating its calm, golden beat in the center of the sleeping house, promising continuity in a world where days and seasons and rulers change. After some unhurried time, you rise, your movement so measured that the house barely notices the shift of weight. Your soles kiss the marble, the gentle tap of each step disappears quickly into the padding of rain and the soft hiss of lamps. You walk toward the impluvium and stand at its edge, feeling the temperature drop slightly as you approach the open sky. From here, the pool of water seems deeper than it truly is, the dark surface holding not just depth but the illusion of it, created by reflections and the night that leans in from above. The rain falls through the compluvium in a steady curtain now, not fierce, not hurried, just constant and sure of itself. You can hear the differences within it, the small, sharp notes of single drops striking the surface in isolation, the softer, broader sound where slender streams have formed along the roof edges, pouring in thicker ribbons into the basin. Each stream makes its own pattern of ripples, its own tiny disturbances in the larger stillness. Now and then a larger drop, delayed on a beam or tile, falls with a greater weight and hits the surface with a more resonant plop, sending firmer ripples out across the gentler ones like a slow, expanding ring. It is like listening to many small voices speaking the same quiet language. You can almost imagine that if you understood that language, it would tell you about the tiles it ran over, about the path across the sky it took to arrive here, about distant hills and fields and roofs, about the smell of pine in one place and dust in another. Instead, you simply receive it as sound and motion and coolness. There is a faint additional sound beneath the obvious ones as well, like a whisper under the music, the water reaching the bottom of the basin and finding small, unseen channels, flowing into pipes and stone-lined shafts that carry it downward into the cistern below. The house is drinking. The rain that fell on distant hills, that traveled in clouds over fields and sea, that tapped its way across rooftops and cloaks and leaves, is now slipping into the hidden reservoirs beneath you, to be drawn up again another day into cups and bowls and basins. The thought is strangely comforting. Nothing is wasted, nothing is hurried, everything simply takes its turn in this slow cycle of rising and falling, of cloud and stone and open sky. For a moment you close your eyes, hearing only the layered sounds of water, feeling the gentleness of the draft that carries the smell of rain and wet stone across your face. Later, in the quiet hall beyond the impluvium, you let your fingers trail along the cool plaster of the frescoed walls as you walk, your hand moving slowly enough that every small bump and irregularity can make itself known. The colors have softened with age and lamplight, but they still carry their stories, the deep reds that once glowed almost like blood or wine in full daylight, the layered blacks that frame panels like the borders of a text, the ochres and pale greens that gather into landscapes and columns in delicate swirls. A painted column divides a painted landscape, separating imagined villas and gardens that no footsteps have ever crossed, yet which have become familiar to those who live here. A mythological figure leans forever in a gesture half completed, their arm reaching, their gaze turned towards something that will never quite arrive. A distant, invented villa stands in a painted garden that no rain will ever touch, its leaves and branches fixed in the moment the painter left them. Above and below, fine lines of decoration weave around the main scenes, small patterns of leaves, flowers, or simple geometric shapes that repeat with a soothing regularity. The light of your passing lamp collects in tiny hollows in the plaster, brightening cracks and ridges for a moment before they slip again into shadow. You can feel, through your fingertips, the slight variation where one section of plaster meets another, where one day's work ended and another began, where a painter's hand smoothed the surface years ago. Where the wall has breathed through summers and winters and storms like this one. The wall is cool under your skin, but not unfriendly. It feels like the back of a patient animal, resting under your touch, breathing so slowly that you might forget it is alive. You move slowly, not because of fear, but because haste has become meaningless here. Each step reveals something already known but newly seen, a small chip in a painted grape, a faint soot mark where a torch once burned too close, a tiny ancient fingerprint caught forever in drying plaster and now barely visible in the lamplight. The house shows you these things as it would show them to someone it trusts, quietly, without demand, letting you decide how long to look, how much to notice, how deeply to breathe in the calm that has settled in these corridors. Beyond the atrium, through the formal space of the tablinum with its more ordered decoration and the quiet weight of stored documents and memories, the house opens into the peristyle, the inner garden that feels like an outdoor room. You pause at the threshold where roof meets open air again, where columns frame a darker rectangle of night. Out in the middle, under the open sky, the garden is taking the rain without complaint, its small paths and beds darkened, its plants bending just a little under the weight of water. Here the sound of rain is different. On the tiled edges of the roof above the colonnade, it drums with a resonant, hollow rhythm, as if playing along the ribs of a great instrument. On the earth and leaves, it whispers and shushes, soft and delicate, 1,000 tiny fingers brushing against soil and bark and stone. Drops slide from the ends of terracotta tiles and fall into soil and stone basins and the surface of a small fountain that now almost disappears under the fresh water pouring from above. The fountain's usual trickle merges with the new pattern, its own voice temporarily lost inside a larger, gentler song. The columns around you stand like pale trunks of an invented forest, their fluted shafts gathering thin lines of shadow where water has splashed or trickled. At their bases, shallow puddles form where stray drops have jumped further than expected, darkening the stone. A few fallen leaves cling to the wet surfaces, plastered against the base of a column or floating briefly before settling. Between the columns, glimpses of plant shapes come and go as your lamp moves, shrubs with glossy, darkened leaves, perhaps a small tree whose branches are traced in glistening droplets, low herbs whose scents rise more strongly now that they are wet. The smell in the peristyle is rich and deep, wet earth cooled after the heat of the day, damp greenery exhaling the stored warmth of sunlight into the moist air, the sharper, clean scent of rain itself mingling with the faint, distant trace of kitchen smoke and extinguished incense wafting from other parts of the house. You draw it in slowly, letting it fill your chest, letting it push out the remnants of street dust and bathhouse steam and all the stale, crowded air of earlier hours. Under this night sky, in this sheltered courtyard, it feels as though the entire house is breathing, inhaling through the garden, exhaling through the compluvium in the atrium, and each of your own breaths has become part of that rhythm. You move along the colonnade, your shoulder brushing lightly against the fluted shaft of a column that comes up cool and faintly damp against your skin. The column has its own quiet story, the faint ridges worn smoother where people have leaned during conversations, a rounded patch where someone's ring or bracelet has rubbed more often, little chips at the base where objects were once set down less carefully than they should have been, a hairline crack running down from a corner of the capital that has remained stubbornly small over years. The lamp in your hand casts a slender oval of light that slides along the stone as you go, carving a moving path through the dark. Beyond the colonnade, the outlines of doorways to private rooms emerge from shadow, a storage room here, its door firmly closed, behind which amphorae and baskets and folded cloth rest in their own darkness. A side chamber there, perhaps used by household staff, in which a simple bed and a stool wait for the next day, perhaps a small study where scrolls are kept, a room where a scribe might have worked earlier in the day, leaving behind the faint smell of ink and scraped papyrus. All of those rooms are still now. Behind some doors, you can almost imagine the sound of slow, even breathing, the little unconscious shifts of bodies in sleep, the faint creak of a rope bed settling as someone turns. A small breeze, cooled by the rain and funneled through the open peristyle, slides along the corridor and touches your face, carrying with it a hint of something distant, perhaps the faintest trace of the sea, or the night air moving over tiled roofs of other houses, or the mingled sense of countless other gardens hidden within their own walls. The rain continues its conversation above, but here under the covered walk it feels like a distant, soothing curtain you might step behind or in front of at will. You are in the liminal space between outside and inside, between garden and room, between waking and sleep. It is a place made for pausing, for leaning lightly on a column and simply existing for a moment with nothing to do, nowhere to go, and time spread out before you like a long, unrolled scroll. After some unhurried time by the garden, you wander back toward the atrium, following the cool line of the stone threshold with your toes, feeling the subtle shift in floor beneath your feet as open space gives way again to interior. The light from the central lamps gathers you in as you step across, the familiar shape of the impluvium anchoring the room like a still, shallow lake of moving light. The rain has settled into a steady, gentle pattern now, its first eagerness has calmed into something more contemplative. You lower yourself onto a small wooden bench near the pool and listen. The bench creaks just faintly under your weight, its wood seasoned by years of use, its surface polished by countless hands and garments sliding across it. The house has a way of turning sound into something almost visible, something thick and textured. The distant murmur of the city lies like a faint gray wash at the edges of your hearing. Closer in, the dripping and trickling of water creates shifting patterns. Closer still, you hear the tiny, almost secret noises of the lamps, a soft hiss when a bit of carbon on the wick burns away, a barely audible pop when a small impurity in the oil is consumed. Your own breathing joins this quiet orchestra, slow and regular, rising and falling in a comforting cadence that the body understands better than thoughts. Your shoulders sink a little further toward the bench, your fingers relax in your lap, their usual small movements stilled by the gentleness of the hour. There is nothing here that calls for attention sharply, everything is rounded, softened, smoothed by lamplight and distance. You are allowed, in this hour, to let go of the day's names and dates and tasks and identities. You are simply a small, warm presence, resting under an open square of night, part of the house's slow, continuous life. In the space between one breath and the next, you notice how the light touches the edge of the impluvium, how the surface of the water smooths out between drops, how the reflection of a single beam trembles when a drop lands. These tiny changes, unnoticed in daylight, become immense in the quiet, each one a small, complete event that begins and ends just as you are ready to observe it. Time here is no longer a measured line, it is a series of expanding circles, like the ripples in the pool, overlapping and fading without fuss. Across the room, the heavy wooden door that leads out to the street stands firmly closed, the thick bar that holds it in place already settled for the night. The wood's grain, visible even in this low light, runs in calm, vertical lines, broken here and there by knots whose shapes could almost be read like faces if you stared long enough. Iron fittings, darkened by years of touch and weather, glint faintly where they catch the lamp glow. A small crack between the door and the frame lets in a thin, pale line of cooler air and a hint of sound from beyond, the footfall of someone hurrying past under a cloak, the muffled bark of a dog answering another dog farther away, the rattle of a cart's wheel on an uneven stone somewhere down the slope. Those sounds do not belong to you tonight. They move along the outer skin of the house and then are gone, dissolved in the larger hush of the sleeping city. The domus stands like a ship in harbor, hull solid and sure, all its shutters drawn, all its interior spaces turned inward. The world outside can ebb and flow, quiet and noisy, ordered and chaotic as it pleases. Here, nothing needs to change quickly. The house has survived many rains, many nights, many small dramas, and it has learned to meet them all with the same unhurried breath. You know that if you wished, you could rise and lift the bar and step out into those streets, feel the rain on your face directly, smell the city's wet stone and torches and mixing scents. But there is no need. The sky has come to you instead, pouring itself gently into the impluvium, sending its coolness down into the stone, its sound into your ears. You stay where you are, within walls painted and carved and cared for, under beams that have watched so many days begin and end, and you feel the quiet gratitude of not having to go anywhere at all, of being held in one familiar place while the night slowly turns. After some time, you rise again and take a small lamp with you, one of the lighter ones, its little handle warm against your fingers, its flame steady but modest, casting just enough light to guide you through the darker parts of the house. You turn toward the corridor that leads to the sleeping rooms, the cubicula, narrower and more shadowed than the more public parts of the domus, its floor changing gradually from the polished openness of the atrium to quieter stone, cooler and less reflective. The air in this passage is cooler, touched less directly by the lamps and the open sky. The rain becomes more distant here, a muffled thrum rather than an immediate song, as if you are moving further inward, deeper into the body of the house. Doors line the walls, some closed, some slightly ajar, each opening into its own small world. One room belonging to a child, dogs curled at the foot of a simple bed, another to a married couple, their belongings carefully arranged in chests and on shelves, another perhaps to an elderly relative, where the air smells faintly of medicinal herbs and wool and old wood. As your light slips past each doorway, it does not intrude. It simply schemes across thresholds, tracing the edges of sleeping objects, the rounded curve of a ceramic jug catching a streak of amber, the folded line of a tunic laid carefully over a chair, the low edge of a bed frame whose shadow stretches long across packed floor. In one doorway, a dangling curtain stirs slightly in the moving air, its woven pattern, barely visible in this light, softening the harsh edges of the stone around it. You move like someone paging through a familiar book in the dark, aware that each room holds its stories, but not needing to open them tonight. Your own cubiculum waits farther along, small and simple and exactly enough. Inside your room, the lamplight spills gently over walls painted in quieter colors than the atrium, maybe a soft red or a muted yellow, their tones subdued by darkness into a kind of lingering warmth. A few simple decorative lines run along the upper edges or frame a central panel, suggesting shapes without insisting on them. The space is not large, but it feels like a held breath, like the pause between phrases in a gentle song, intimate and self-contained. The bed takes up much of one side, a wooden frame, its legs and posts smoothed by hands and bedding, its rope supports tightened earlier in the day, their woven lines forming a firm net. The mattress on top, stuffed with straw and perhaps a layer of softer material above, rises in a low, modest mound, its linen cover neatly pulled and tucked. A wool blanket lies folded back, waiting like an invitation. Beside the bed stands a small chest or stool, bearing the simple things you might need, perhaps a folded cloth, a clay cup, a small item of personal value that travels with you from day to day. You place the lamp on a small stand at the head of the bed and sit, feeling the subtle give of the mattress under your weight, the rope supports creaking just a little in a friendly, familiar way, then settling. The straw rustles softly as it adjusts. Your hands move in familiar rituals, unfastening, loosening, letting the weight of outer garments slip away, hearing faint clinks and soft flutters as fabric folds onto itself, smoothing the sheet beneath you, seeking places where it might wrinkle against your skin, shaking the blanket lightly to free any dust, the wool's weight fluttering for a brief moment before it falls heavy and sure again. The night tunic that you put on is softer than what you wore during the day, its linen cooled by the air and forgiving against your skin. As you draw it down over your shoulders and torso, you feel your body register the shift from public to private, from upright to resting. The lamplight traces the curve of your arm, the lines of your hands, the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Outside this room, the house continues its slow, collective breathing. In here, the rhythm is narrower and closer, tuned to your own. When you lie back, the bed accepts you with the ease of something that has done this many times before, the mattress cradling your body where the day's stiffness still hides. You feel, in the shift of your weight, the quiet structure of the frame, the ropes holding firm, the boards that support everything. It is a simple construction, but tonight it feels like a small, secure boat, floating in a dark, calm bay under lamplight and rain. The sounds of the house, softened by walls and distance, become the gentle lapping of water against this imaginary hull. Your head finds the pillow, not cloud soft, but supportive, shaped by many nights before this one, and your neck begins to release in a way it rarely has time for in the bright hours. You feel each vertebra along your spine loosening its grip, one after another, like fingers slowly unclenching. Your shoulders sink down, spreading slightly as the mattress accepts their weight. Your legs extend in front of you, knees easing, ankles letting go of the small tensions created by walking on stone. You reach toward the lamp and lower the wick a little, so that the flame shrinks to a smaller, gentler glow, its edges no longer sharp but blurred. Shadows gather more closely in the corners of the room, and the painted walls withdraw into suggestion rather than detail, their colors dimming to muted bands. The ceiling overhead becomes only a dark plane where your eyes rarely wander. The lamp's light now touches mostly you, the bed, a small patch of wall near the shrine that many people keep even in their bedrooms, a miniature lararium, perhaps, with a single symbol or small figure. For a moment, you sit up slightly and let your eyes rest on that small sacred object, silently acknowledging the presence it represents, not with elaborate words, but with a simple, inward turning of thought. Thank you for the day, watch over us in the night, let the house sleep without fear. You do not need to say anything aloud. The room has absorbed enough spoken words over the years to understand even the quiet ones that never reach the lips. The lamp beside the little figure throws a faint highlight along its edge, as if underlining your unspoken wishes. Then you sink back again, pulling the wool blanket up over your body. The weight is pleasant, definite, like a gentle hand pressing you toward the mattress with just enough insistence to remind you that you do not need to rise again tonight. The underside of the blanket is warmer already from earlier contact with your skin, and it wraps around you with the simple, non-negotiable comfort of something that has one job and does it perfectly, to hold you in place while the world changes outside. Your feet find their spot, pressing lightly against the linen, then relaxing as they recognize the familiar contour. Your arms settle where they belong, one perhaps resting lightly over your abdomen, the other along your side or gently under your head. Your breathing begins to deepen, lengthening each exhale, softening each inhale. With each breath, you feel the blanket rise and fall, a small, steady tide that sets the pace for your thoughts. As drowsiness thickens, your thoughts move less like marching lines and more like drifting clouds. They do not disappear entirely, they simply lose their sharpness. Things that seemed important this afternoon become faint, like ink left out in the rain, their edges blurring and their colors washing together. Faces of people you spoke with today pass through your mind, their features smoothing, their names slipping to the edges. Fragments of phrases you heard in the forum or at the baths melt into the softer sound of water in the impluvium, becoming indistinguishable from the unending fall of drops into the basin. You allow this blurring to happen. There is no need tonight to hold on to every detail. If something truly needs to return, it will come back tomorrow on its own, when the lamps are brighter and the house is full of footsteps again. For now, you let the mind stack its thoughts like scrolls in a chest, rolling each one up and setting it down, closing the lid one layer at a time. Between you and the rest of the house there is only the curtain of rain, the solid kindness of walls, the quiet watchfulness of wooden beams and painted gods. Your eyes grow heavier, staying closed for longer stretches, opening only briefly as if to confirm what they already know. The lamp is still there, small and steady, the room has not vanished, the bed holds you firmly. Each time they close again, they sink a little deeper, like a stone settling into soft sand underwater. The faint inside of the eyelid glow from the lamp fades slowly toward darkness. Eventually, your eyes simply do not bother to open anymore. The room is there whether you look at it or not, the house is breathing whether you listen or not, and you drift downward, gently, into the soft, obscuring depths of sleep. Part 2. At some point in the night, later, but with no need to know precisely when, you surface gently from sleep, not startled, not dragged, but rising as slowly as a leaf lifted by a passing wave. For a few breaths you lie perfectly still, surrounded by a softness that feels almost like water, your body suspended between waking and dreaming. The weight of the blanket presses reassuringly along your limbs, and the straw-filled mattress holds the shape you left in it, as if time has gone out and returned with everything exactly in place. For a moment, you are aware only of your own breath, moving in and out in long, quiet strokes. Then, gradually, the sounds of the house seep back into your awareness. The rain is softer now, more intermittent, its earlier steady rhythm broken into occasional patterns of drops that fall from roof edges and beams, each series of taps fading into silence before another begins. Somewhere above, a beam creaks as wood adjusts to the cooled, damp air, a tiny shift echoed by other, quieter movements in the structure overhead, like an old body resettling itself in sleep. The lamp you left burning at its lowest is now just a faint, patient glow, its wick shortened, its oil nearly spent. The light it casts is barely more than a suggestion, a softening of darkness near the stand, a slight warmth along the edge of the bed. Most of the room is given over to shadow, shapes indistinct and gently merged. Your body feels heavier than before sleep, but in a pleasant way, as if the bones have taken on weight while the mind has become lighter. This is not a harsh interruption that demands full waking. It is one of the night's natural pauses, a shallow pool between deeper waters. You could turn over and slide back down immediately, letting the warmth and the rhythm of your breath pull you under again. But something invites you to linger here for a moment, in this dim, middle space between sleeping and waking, where the edges of things are soft and nothing needs to be done quickly. You notice how your skin feels against the linen, slightly warmer along the places where your body lay, cooler where your arms or legs shifted away in sleep. You notice the faint imprint of the pillow against your cheek, the way your hair lies, slightly rumpled, against the fabric. You notice how your breath sounds in this stillness, slow, even, a muffled tide inside your chest. You notice how the blanket has warmed, how the linen beneath you has molded to your shape, almost remembering you. You notice that your thoughts, when they appear, move gently, without the hard edges of daytime worries. They are more like impressions, soft revisitations of the house you know so well, the rooms you crossed, the rain you watched. Even the memory of the day's tasks has become quiet, like distant hills under a night sky, outlines present but details lost in the dark. The air in the room has cooled since you first lay down, but the warmth of your body, trapped beneath the blanket, has created a small, private climate, a little island of comfort separate from the larger oceans of air outside. When you draw a deeper breath, you can smell the faint mingling of wool and linen and the subtle, lingering traces of oil and smoke from the lamp. Somewhere beyond your walls, the house's larger breath continues, the fading rain, the occasional creak, perhaps the distant sigh of someone turning over in another room. You lie there and let your awareness expand just far enough to feel the house around you, as if your body were a small, glowing point at the center of a larger, dim constellation of rooms and corridors and courtyards. You feel the solid presence of stone beneath you, not directly under the mattress, but deeper still, the cooled mass of the floor and the foundations. You feel the protective weight of the roof above, tile and beam and plaster and night sky beyond. You feel the walls around you, not as barriers, but as arms folded gently into a circle. After some unhurried time in this in-between, you feel a small curiosity, gentle rather than urgent, to see the atrium again in its deeper night. The thought does not arrive as a command, but as a quiet suggestion. You could rise, if you wished, and look once more at the impluvium, at the square of sky. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the comfortable arrangement of pillow and blanket more than necessary, and swing your feet to the floor. The marble is cooler now than it was earlier, cooled by the long, wet night, glancing at your soles with a touch that is more brisk but still not unwelcome. It wakes the skin just enough to keep you steady and aware of where your body meets the world. You wrap a light wool wrap around your shoulders, its fabric carrying a faint smell of stored cloth and the ghost of daytime warmth. The wrap settles over you like another, lighter layer of night, closing gently at your throat or across your chest. You take the lamp in hand, its clay body pleasantly warm against your fingers, and coax the wick up just slightly so that the flame can strengthen for this small journey. It responds with a quiet eagerness, drawing more oil and rising into a slightly taller, more confident tongue of light. In the new glow, your room's familiar details briefly reassert themselves: the small chest, the painted line on the wall, the curve of the bed frame, and then recede again as you turn toward the doorway and step out into the corridor. In the corridor, the darkness is thicker than it was earlier, the house farther along in its sleep. Your lamp carves out a little sphere of soft gold as you walk, and within it you see the same doors, the same walls, now with the added intimacy of knowing that almost every living thing behind them is in the deep quiet of second sleep. The sounds you hear are more intimate now: a faint snore somewhere behind a closed door, the tiny wheeze of a child's breath through a slightly blocked nose. The soft shifting of a dog's paws against stone as it dreams, claws clicking just once before going still again. The plaster on the corridor walls looks different at night, its imperfections more pronounced in the low, raking light of your lamp. Small bumps cast tiny shadows, faint cracks that are invisible by day become delicate lines, as if the house were covered in the lightest of maps. In some places, the lime wash has worn thin from contact, revealing older layers beneath; in others, the surface remains unmarked and smooth. Your fingertips itch to trace those lines again, but tonight you content yourself with watching the way the light runs across them as you walk. You pass without disturbance, your own steps hardly louder than the whisper of your clothing. The soles of your feet make a soft, regular sound on the stone, a quiet padding that seems to blend with the house's own heartbeat. There is a sense of moving not just through space, but through layers of rest, as though the house has sunk a few levels deeper into itself, and you are sliding through those layers like someone walking through still, clear water, careful not to disturb the sediment of dreams that lies settled at the bottom. When you reach the atrium again, the change in the night is immediately obvious. The drumming of the earlier rain has faded to scattered, occasional drops. Only every now and then does a cluster of water, gathered on a roof edge or in a hollow tile, let go and fall, landing in the impluvium with solitary, ringing notes that echo more sharply in the quiet. The basin's surface is now a smooth, dark mirror, its earlier agitation stilled, the ripples gone except where each new drop briefly writes its circle before disappearing. The impluvium, fuller now than before, holds the water like a piece of the night sky laid flat in the center of the room. It reflects not only the lamps and the architecture, but the sky above the compluvium, which has opened once more to stars. You step closer, and your own lamplight meets the distant starlight on the water's surface, mingling in ways neither can manage alone. The flame's warm flicker and the cool points of starlight stretch and bend together in the dark, creating soft streaks and glimmers that shift with the slightest movement of your hand. The rectangle of night framed by the roof beams is softer and paler now, the heavy rain clouds parted into slow-moving islands that reveal patches of deep, luminous blue-black. Stars burn there with a steady clarity, their light older than any structure in this city, older than the names of its streets, older than the stories painted on these walls. Their light has traveled across ages to be caught tonight in this small, domestic space, in this shallow marble pool in the center of a sleeping house. For a moment, you tilt your head back and look up directly through the opening, without the water's mediation, letting the cool air from above spill down over your face. The air that falls through the compluvium is sharper now, washed clean by the rain, with a faint hint of distant soil and stone, of roofs and hills and perhaps the far-off sea. Up there is the vastness, the movements of planets, the endless pathways of gods and stories, the grand arc of time the philosophers write about. Down here is the closeness, stone beneath your feet, lamplight on your skin, the quiet breath of the domus. And you, standing between them, feel no need to choose. You belong to both, a small, brief figure wrapped in wool and shadow, breathing in the same air that has traveled over fields and waves and mountains. Your gaze returns to the lorarium, its lamp still holding its small, watchful flame, unwavering despite the long hours. Here, the guardians of the household stand as they did earlier, as they did yesterday, as they likely will tomorrow, unchanged in form, but receiving every small shift in the life around them, every worry, every joy, every whispered plea. In this deepest part of the night, their presence feels even more tangible, not fearsome, but companionable, like very old friends who do not need words in order to understand. You move toward the shrine, arriving without haste. And let the hand that is not holding the lamp rest gently on the edge of its niche. The stone there is slightly warmer than the surrounding wall, having absorbed the lamp's heat. It feels almost like skin, like a forehead touched in reassurance or farewell. The faint grain of the plaster, the tiny irregularities left by the artisan's trowel, pressed lightly into your palm. No new offering is needed now. Simply standing here, breathing quietly, is its own kind of gift, an acknowledgement that the protection offered has been felt and accepted. The little figures look out over the atrium with their eternally calm expressions, their features softened by time and smoke. The shadows under their brows deepen in the low light, making their eyes seem both more hollow and more knowing. If any thought comes to your lips, it is not elaborate, not dramatic. Perhaps just a silent sentence, shaped and then released. Thank you for this roof, for this night, for this bed to return to, for these walls that stand. The words melt almost instantly into the general quiet, indistinguishable from the soft hiss of the lamp and the distant drip of the last raindrops. But you have said them, inside, and that is enough. You stand for a little while longer, watching the lamp at the shrine burn with its steady, controlled flame, and then your attention drifts back toward the pool of the impluvium. The water has become so still in the intervals between drops that the slightest disturbance, a drop, the faint tremor of your step on the marble, sends a visible shiver across the reflected stars. In this smooth surface, the house above and the sky beyond come together in one image, roof beams and constellations sharing the same dark glass. The air in the atrium is cooler now, the last warmth of the day finally dispersed. Your breath slips from your lips in faint, invisible threads that vanish almost as soon as they form. You draw your wrap a little closer around your shoulders, feeling the weave shift against your skin. Somewhere beyond the heavy door, the city is quieter than before, the few remaining sounds more sporadic, more isolated, a late voice calling and receiving no answer, a cart rattling over stone and then falling silent, the bark of a dog answered only by its own echo. The house, too, feels lower in its breathing, as if it has sunk from a gentle wakefulness into a deeper, more complete rest. The beams creak less often, the faint contractions and expansions of cooling materials slow. It is as though you have stepped into a room inside someone else's dream, where everything moves with the same slow rhythm. After a time, a sense of pleasant heaviness begins to return to your limbs, a reminder that your body would gladly lie down again, that the bed you left is still waiting, warmed by your recent presence. When you return to your cubiculum, the bed is exactly as you left it, a hollow where your body had warmed the linen, the blanket still half folded back, holding the shape of your exit. The pillow waits with its familiar curve, the impression of your head still faintly pressed into its fabric. The small stand where the lamp rests has not shifted, the room's simple furnishings keep their quiet positions, as constant as the gods in the shrine. You set the lamp down and, after a moment's consideration, lower the wick even further, allowing the flame to shrink to a faint ember of light or perhaps, if the oil is nearly gone, to surrender at last and go out completely. As the flame withdraws, color drains from the room, leaving only layers of darkness. The outlines of objects remain in your memory rather than in your eyes. You no longer see the chest, but you know exactly where it is. You no longer see the painted line, but you remember its path. The room does not vanish, it simply becomes an interior space of the mind, a remembered outline rather than a seen one. You slip back under the blanket, feeling the mattress welcome you again as if you had been away much longer than the short walk down the corridor. The warmed hollow in the linen meets your body with a familiarity that feels both comforting and inevitable. The weight of the wool settles over your shoulders, your chest, your legs, pressing you gently towards stillness. In darkness, your awareness turns inward more easily, to the slow beat of your heart, like a drum muffled in cloth, to the gentle rise and fall of your abdomen, to the almost imperceptible sensation of your fingers resting against the fabric. Outside, the last few drops from the roof finally fall, the impluvium's surface grows entirely smooth, its reflections undisturbed. The house has drunk its fill of rain, the cisterns below now holding the sky's gift in deep, cool shadow. Above, the stars continue their distant courses, untroubled by weather or roofs or human sleep. Down here, within these walls of plaster and stone and paint, you feel the domus settling fully into its second, quieter half of the night, sinking into a stillness that feels almost like thought turned entirely inward. You let your breath match that deep settling. Each inhale is a slow, easy gathering of cool air, bringing with it faint traces of stone and linen and the ghost of extinguished oil. You feel the air flow in through your nose, cool, then warm as it passes your throat, then expand into your chest. Each exhale is a longer, softer release, carrying away whatever remnants of thought still cling to you, the last small concerns, the tiny question marks left over from the day. You do not need to wrestle with them, you simply let each one ride out on a breath and dissolve into the dark. Your body, now thoroughly convinced that nothing is required of it, begins to lengthen and loosen again. Muscles in your neck and shoulders that once felt like coiled rope now unfurl, strand by strand, almost audibly in the quiet of your own perception. Your hands, no longer curled, lie open and quiet, fingers slightly bent in the relaxed curve of sleep. Even your jaw, often clenched, often holding words or tension unspoken, slackens, allowing your tongue to rest, your teeth to separate slightly. You are no longer preparing to speak or act. You are preparing only to drift. Thought itself starts to behave like the reflections in the impluvium. What was once sharp and distinct softens at the edges, stretches, and merges with other images. A memory of looking up at the compluvium blends with the imagined outline of a distant hill, which in turn becomes the curve of a clay lamp in your hand, which then becomes nothing more than the sense of warmth in your chest. Faces, places, snatches of speech slide past one another, combining in ways that matter only for a heartbeat before dissolving. You do not need to follow these transformations. You simply let them happen around you, as you sink deeper. In the final stretch of waking, you feel the night as a gentle weight pressing down from above, not oppressive but protective, like a vast hand cupped over the domus. Over the peristyle and the atrium and the cisterns and the beds, over the lararium and the storerooms and the silent door to the street. All the spaces you walked through earlier now fold in around you like the layers of a cloak, the columns, the frescoes, the marble, the garden, all quietly taking their places in a pattern that needs no adjustment. Here, in the smallest nested layer of that pattern, on this bed in this room, your awareness slows to almost nothing. You have done enough wandering for one night, from atrium to garden, from shrine to sky, from waking to that middle pool and back again. The domus will keep its watch now, its beams and walls and foundations forming a circle around your sleep. The gods at the lararium will keep theirs, statues standing still while their meaning stays awake. The rain has withdrawn into the earth and the air, leaving the surfaces of stone and tile clean and cool. The city will stay where it is until dawn, no matter how deeply you sink. You do not need to hold on to any of this. You can let go completely, trusting that the marble floor will still be beneath you tomorrow, that the impluvium will still wait for rain, that the lamps will be tended, that the doors will open when they must. The future does not need your attention yet, it can wait outside the bedroom door, in the corridor, in the atrium, in the city streets. Here, there is only this, warmth, and weight, and breath, and the slow, steady dark. With a final, long exhale, you let your thoughts uncurl and slip away into the soft, dark water of sleep, where even the echoes of footsteps and the shapes of columns dissolve, where the square of sky above the compluvium becomes only a distant memory of light. The house holds you as gently as it holds rainwater and lamplight and shadows, and you sink, unhurried and unafraid, into a deep, endless, peaceful night. At some point in the night, later, but with no need to know precisely when, you surface gently from sleep, not startled, not dragged, but rising as slowly as a leaf lifted by a passing wave. There is no jolt, no break in the darkness. Instead, awareness returns like light seeping under a door, thin at first, then gradually widening. For several breaths you lie perfectly still, not yet reaching for thoughts, simply noticing that you are somewhere between depths, somewhere between a dream that has already faded and another that has not yet begun. The world closest to you is made of warmth and weight and softness. The blanket lies over you with quiet certainty, its wool thick and slightly coarse where it brushes your chin, its underside warmed by hours pressed against your skin. Beneath you, the straw-filled mattress cradles the shape you left in it, the hollow that your body has slowly carved over nights and nights of lying down in this same place. You can feel where the straw has shifted, where it is more compacted near your shoulders and hips, where it rises a little higher near your knees and ankles. It is not perfectly even, but it does not need to be. It is familiar, and that familiarity is its own comfort. For a moment, you are aware only of your own breath, moving in and out in long, quiet strokes. You notice the way the air feels as it enters, just a touch cooler than your skin, tinged with the faint dryness of the interior night, and the way it leaves, warm and soft and slightly heavier. Your chest rises and falls in a small, regular motion that barely disturbs the blanket. Somewhere in your throat, a tiny sound hums with each exhale, not quite a sigh, not quite a whisper, just the body's quiet confirmation that it is still at work. Then, gradually, the sounds of the house seep back into your awareness, as if they have been waiting patiently outside the doorway of your sleep and now step in one by one. The rain is softer now, more intermittent, its earlier steady rhythm broken into brief, scattered patterns of drops that fall from roof edges and beams, each short burst of tapping fading into silence before another begins. The heavy drumming you remember has become a lighter, more delicate language, like a conversation held in low tones at the far end of a room. Somewhere above, a beam creaks as wood adjusts to the cooled, damp air, a tiny shift echoed by other, quieter movements in the structure overhead, a faint tick here, a soft, almost inaudible sigh there, like the small, involuntary adjustments of a sleeping body. The sound comes and goes in a way that assures rather than alarms. The house is not cracking or breaking, merely settling deeper into its own rest. The lamp you left burning at its lowest is now just a faint, patient glow, its wick shortened, its oil nearly spent. The light it casts is barely more than a suggestion, a warmer patch of shadow near the stand, a soft dimness where the total darkness is interrupted. Most of the room is given over to shadow, shapes indistinct and gently merged, the lines of furniture and walls no sharper than the images that pass behind closed eyelids. Your body feels heavier than before sleep, but in a pleasant way, as though your bones have taken on weight while the mind has become lighter, the two exchanging burdens in the quiet. This is not a harsh interruption that demands full waking. It is one of the night's natural pauses, a shallow pool between deeper waters. You could turn over and slide back down immediately, letting the warmth and the rhythm of your breath pull you under again without ever fully opening your eyes. There is nothing forcing you upward. And yet, something invites you to linger here for a moment, in this dim, middle space between sleeping and waking, where the edges of things are soft and nothing needs to be done quickly. It is a gentle curiosity rather than a requirement, a small awareness that this quiet interval also belongs to you. You notice how your skin feels against the linen sheet, the fabric cooled where it is exposed to the air, and gently warmed where it has been sandwiched between your body and the mattress. Your shoulders sense the faint texture of the cloth, its weave pressing the lightest grid into your skin. Beneath your hands, resting loose and open on either side of you, the linen feels smooth in some places, slightly roughened in others where it has been washed and dried many times, the fibers softened and tangled by use. There is a small awareness of the way your hair lies against the pillow, how some strands cling to the fabric while others trail free across your neck or forehead. You feel the slight weight of it when you move your head, a subtle pull that tells you you are still anchored, still here. The pillow itself supports the curve of your skull, neither too high nor too low, its stuffing shifted into a shape that has slowly learned the contours of you. The air in the room has cooled since you first lay down, but the warmth of your body, trapped beneath the blanket, has created a small, private climate, a little pocket of gentler temperature separate from the wider pools of air outside. When you lift the edge of the blanket slightly with one hand, a thin line of cooler air sneaks in and brushes your skin, and you can feel the difference immediately. It is not unpleasant, just enough contrast to remind you of the world beyond your own warmth. You let the blanket fall back into place, hearing the quiet, soft rustle of wool as it settles, feeling the warmth gather again around you like water returning to fill a hollow. As you lie there, not fully asleep and not fully awake, you let your awareness extend outward in slow, careful circles. You feel the mattress under you first, then the bed frame beneath that, its sturdy wooden structure faintly creaking when you shift. Beneath the frame, deeper and cooler, you imagine the stone floor, the slabs and mosaics that you walked across earlier, now hidden under layers of straw and wood and fabric. They are still there, still carrying the cold of the night and the memory of the rain's chill lurking in the air. Beyond the floor, in your mind's sense rather than your body's, lie the foundations of the house, blocks of stone sunk into the earth, anchoring the domus in place. They sit in the damp soil, drinking in the night's moisture, receiving the vibration of distant wheels and footsteps, sending back only silence. Above you, the roof spans out. Tile and beam and plaster arching over the atrium, the corridors, your small room. It has withstood many storms, many nights of rain drumming and wind pushing. Tonight's gentle pattering is only one more in a long sequence. You feel the walls around you, not as flat surfaces, but as solid planes that embrace, forming a protective square. Their plastered faces, painted and smoothed, are cool to the touch, but in your imagination they are warm in intention, standing between you and the open air. The room is like a small, sheltered chamber within a larger shell, which itself rests inside an even larger one, the house within the city within the land beneath the sky. For this moment, it all seems simple and well-ordered. You, resting under your blanket, are one quiet center among many. Somewhere outside your door, down the corridor and past the silent thresholds of other rooms, the house's larger breath continues, a distant drip near the impluvium, a faint stir of air around a column, the smallest vibration of something shifting in a storage room. You do not hear all of it distinctly, but you sense it, like the slow circulation of blood in a body that is mostly asleep. It is enough to know that you are not alone in this night, that the house itself keeps you company, even as people sleep. After some unhurried time in this in-between, a small thought, as soft as a fingertip on water, touches the surface of your awareness. You could rise. You could walk again through the corridor and see how the atrium looks now, in this deeper hour of the night, when the rain has nearly spent itself and the sky might be clearing. It is not an urge or a command, simply a gentle suggestion that drifts in and lingers. There is no reason you must act on it, but there is no reason you must ignore it either. You let the idea sit for a few breaths, feeling your chest rise and fall under the blanket. Then, slowly, as if agreeing with something the house itself has proposed, you gather a little of your strength and begin to move. Your hands slide out from under the blanket, the cooler air brushing along your wrists and forearms with a small, wakeful clarity. You bend one knee, then the other, shifting the weight of your legs, feeling the mattress respond with a faint, familiar rustle of straw. You roll gently onto your side and then push yourself upward, your spine unfolding like a vine climbing back toward the light. For a moment, your head swims slightly as you move from horizontal to vertical, the blood redistributing, but the sensation passes quickly, dissolving into the quiet. You sit at the edge of the bed with your feet still tucked under the blanket for an extra heartbeat or two, letting your body remember that it knows how to be upright in the dark as well as in daylight. Then you slide your feet out from under the covers and onto the floor. The marble is cooler now than it was earlier in the evening, cooled by the long, wet night and the steady, hidden exchange of heat with the air. It meets your soles with a touch that is brisk but not unfriendly, a clear line of sensation that traces up through your ankles and calves, waking just enough of you to keep your steps secure. Your toes press against the stone, feeling its slight grain, the invisible remnants of dust and tiny particles settled from the day. In response, the floor gives back nothing but its own steady presence. You reach for the light wool wrap that hangs nearby, folded or draped over a peg or the back of a simple chair, and draw it around your shoulders. The fabric falls with a soft, almost soundless whisper, the lanolin-rich fibers holding a faint scent of stored cloth and the ghost of daytime warmth. As you pull the edges together across your chest, the wrap closes like another, lighter layer of night, covering the thin linen of your sleeping tunic, taking the first edge off the chill. The lamp waits where you left it, its clay body still faintly warm from its long, careful burning. The wick glows like a tiny ember at the tip, the flame so small that it is almost shy. You take the lamp gently in your hand, feeling the shape of its handle fit into your fingers. The barest trace of oil around its lip slick under your thumb. With your other hand, using a small piece of metal or simply the pinch of your fingers, you coax the wick upward just a little, and the ember responds, drinking more oil, flaring softly into a taller tongue of flame. Light thickens in the room, still low, still golden, but enough now to catch the edges of objects that were only impressions a moment ago. The lines of the chest emerge from shadow, its corners worn smooth, its lid held closed by its own weight. The painted band along the wall near the ceiling reappears as a muted strip, the color difficult to name in this light, somewhere between red and brown. The frame of the bed reveals itself in faint highlights where the lamp's glow brushes along the wood. Everything you see you already knew was there, the light simply reminds your eyes of what your body and memory had not forgotten. You stand, the mattress rising slowly as your weight lifts away, the straw sighing back toward its previous shape. For a brief moment, your feet feel the full, cool contact of the stone, then you begin to walk, the lamp held in front of you, the wrap snug around your shoulders, your steps small and deliberate. The door opens with only a tiny sound, a low rub of wood against wood, and you step into the corridor, carrying your little circle of light with you into the deeper dark. In the corridor, the darkness is thicker than it was earlier, as if the night has concentrated itself in these more interior spaces while you slept. Your lamp carves out a small sphere of soft gold as you walk, and within it, familiar forms return, the smooth sweep of the plastered walls, the rectangular outlines of doorways, the slightly rougher texture of the floor where countless feet have passed. Everything beyond that circle is suggestion and shadow, a deeper gray that hints at shapes without insisting on them. Within the rooms behind the doors, almost every living thing is in the deep quiet of second sleep. The sounds that reach you are more intimate now, more delicate. From one room comes the faint, steady snore of someone sleeping on their back, a gentle rasp that rises and falls in time with a chest you cannot see. From another, there is the softer, irregular breath of a child, a tiny wheeze at the end of each exhale where a narrow passage in the nose has become just a little blocked. Somewhere, at floor level, claws click once against stone, a dog shifting, perhaps, or stretching out its legs in a dream before settling again. The house gathers these sounds as it gathers the echoes of rain, folding them into its own quiet. The plaster on the corridor walls looks different at night, its imperfections more pronounced in the low, raking light. The lamp's glow runs along the surface, catching tiny bumps and dips, turning them into a delicate relief of light and shadow. Hairline cracks, invisible by day, appear now as pale, wandering lines like very fine veins beneath the skin of the house. In some places, the lime wash has worn thin from long contact with shoulders and hands, revealing older layers beneath, slightly darker, slightly rougher. In others, the surface remains smooth and unmarked, as if no one has leaned there for years. You pass each door without disturbance, your own steps hardly louder than the whisper of your clothing. The soles of your feet make a soft, regular sound on the stone, not quite a slap, not quite a tap, more like a muted brush, a quiet rhythm that becomes part of the house's larger pulse. There is a sense of moving not just through space, but through layers of rest, as though the domus has sunk a few levels deeper into itself, and you are sliding through those layers like someone walking through still, clear water, careful not to stir the sediment of dreams lying settled at the bottom. When you reach the atrium again, the change in the night is immediately obvious, as if you have stepped into a slightly different world than the one you left earlier. The heavy, constant drumming of the earlier rain has faded to scattered, occasional drops. Every now and then, water gathered on a roof edge or in a hollow tile lets go and falls, landing in the impluvium with solitary, ringing notes that echo more sharply in the quiet than the continuous patter ever did. Between these small bursts of sound, there is a stillness that feels almost like listening. The impluvium itself, fuller now than before, holds the water like a piece of the night sky laid flat in the center of the room. Its surface is a smooth, dark mirror, its earlier agitation stilled, the ripples gone except where each new drop briefly writes its circle before vanishing. Around its stone lip, darker bands mark where the marble has become wet and then started to dry, the edges blurred like ink on damp parchment. A faint, clean scent rises from the basin, the smell of fresh rainwater mingled with cold stone, subtle but unmistakable. You step closer, and your own lamplight meets the distant starlight on the water's surface, mingling in ways neither can manage alone. The flame's warm flicker stretches into trembling streaks, while the cool points of starlight scatter into soft, wavering dots. When you move your hand, the reflections shift with it, sliding and bending and briefly losing their shapes before finding them again. It is like watching a double sky, one above, framed by the roof beams, and one below, caught in the shallow depth of the pool. The rectangle of night framed by the compluvium is softer and paler now, the heavy rain clouds parted into slow-moving islands that reveal patches of deep, luminous blue-black. Stars burn there with a steady clarity, their light older than any structure in this city, older than the names of its streets, older than the stories painted on these walls. Their arrangement is as familiar as the pattern of tiles on the floor, yet tonight it feels new again, seen from the particular slant of this hour, from this particular point of tiredness and calm. For a moment, you tilt your head back and look up directly through the opening, without the water's mediation, letting the cool air from above spill down over your face and neck. The air that falls through the compluvium is sharper now, washed clean by the rain, carrying a faint hint of far-off soil and tiled roofs, of damp wood and distant green. Up there is the vastness, the movements of planets, the endless pathways of gods and stories, the grand arc of time the philosophers write about. Down here is the closeness, stone beneath your feet, lamplight on your skin, the quiet breath of the domus. And you, standing between them, feel no need to choose. You belong to both, grounded and small and yet connected to everything that has ever moved under that sky. Your gaze returns to the lorarium, its lamp still holding its small, watchful flame, unwavering despite the long hours. The light in the shrine seems almost independent of the rest of the room's illumination, as if it belongs to another scale of time. Here, the guardians of the household stand as they did earlier, as they did yesterday, as they likely will tomorrow, unchanged in form, but receiving every small shift in the life around them, every worry, every joy, every whispered plea. In this deepest part of the night, their presence feels even more tangible, not distant or austere, but near and companionable, like very old friends who do not need words to understand. You move toward the shrine, arriving without haste, each step a quiet acceptance rather than a pilgrimage. The base of the niche catches your lamp's glow, its painted edges deepening into shadow where the plaster slips inward. You let the hand that is not holding the lamp rest gently on that edge. The stone there is slightly warmer than the surrounding wall, having absorbed the lamp's heat. It feels almost like skin, like a forehead touched in reassurance or greeting. Under your fingers, you feel the faint grain of the plaster, the subtle dips where the artisan's tool moved a little faster or slower, the tiny irregularities that make it real. The little figures look out over the atrium with their eternally calm expressions, their features softened by time and smoke. The shadows under their brows deepen in the low light, making their eyes seem both hollow and full at once. Their hands, lifted in perpetual gesture, catch thin lines of light along their fingers, as if they are always on the verge of movement and yet always still. Behind them, the painted background, perhaps a small temple, perhaps stylized foliage, holds their forms like a backdrop that never fades. No new offering is needed now. Simply standing here, breathing quietly, is its own kind of gift, an acknowledgement that the protection offered has been felt and accepted. If any thought comes to your lips, it is not elaborate, not dramatic. Perhaps just a silent sentence, shaped and then released: thank you for this roof, for this night, for this bed to return to, for these walls that stand. The words melt almost instantly into the general quiet, indistinguishable from the soft hiss of the lamp and the distant drip of the last raindrops. But you have said them, inside, and that is enough. The house, and whatever listens beyond the house, has heard. You stand for a little while longer, watching the shrine's lamp burn with its steady, contained flame, and then your attention drifts back toward the pool of the impluvium as easily as breath moves from inhale to exhale. The water has become so still in the longer intervals between drops that the slightest disturbance, a single falling bead, the faint tremor of your step on the marble, sends a visible shiver across the reflected stars. Circles ripple outward from each point of impact, briefly bending constellations, pulling them into curves, then releasing them again into calm. In this smooth surface, the house above and the sky beyond come together in one image, roof beams and constellations sharing the same dark glass. The marble rim of the basin forms a pale frame around that captured night, its edges catching the lamplight in thin, bright lines. Tiny imperfections in the stone, a faint scratch here, a small inclusion of darker material there, stand out more strongly where they interrupt those lines, reminding you that even something that seems so solid and flawless carries its own small irregularities. The air in the atrium is cooler now than in the earlier part of the evening, the last warmth of the day finally dispersed. Your breath slips from your lips in faint, invisible threads that vanish almost as soon as they form, but you feel the subtle movement of air as it leaves you, the chest relaxing, the abdomen softening. You draw your wrap a little closer around your shoulders, feeling the wool's fibers rasp gently against the linen underneath, then settle once more into stillness. Somewhere beyond the heavy door to the street, the city is quieter than before, the few remaining sounds more sporadic, more isolated. A late voice calling and receiving no answer, a cart rattling over stone and then falling silent, the bark of a dog answered only by its own echo. The wide, daytime version of the world has collapsed into narrow channels of activity, and even those are thinning. The house, too, feels lower in its breathing, as if it has drifted from a gentle wakefulness into a deeper, more complete rest. The beams creak less often, the faint contractions and expansions of cooling materials slow. It is as though you have stepped into a room inside someone else's dream, where everything moves with the same slow rhythm. After a time, a sense of pleasant heaviness begins to return to your limbs, a gentle reminder that your body would gladly lie down again, that the bed you left is still waiting, warmed by the recent presence of your sleeping form. The idea of walking back through the corridor no longer feels like a choice to be weighed. It feels like a natural continuation of the same soft current that brought you here. When you return to your cubiculum, the bed is exactly as you left it, as if it has been quietly holding your place in the world while you stepped away. The hollow where your body had warmed the linen remains, a small depression in the mattress that fits you and no one else in exactly the same way. The blanket still lies half folded back, its heavier fold marking the spot where you had lifted it to leave. The pillow waits with its familiar curve, the indentation of your head still faintly pressed into its stuffing, as if it has been remembering the shape of your rest. You set the lamp down on the small stand and watch the flame for a moment. The oil in its reservoir has sunk lower, the light strength subdued by long burning. After a brief consideration, less a debate than a quiet understanding, you lower the wick even further, allowing the flame to shrink to a faint ember of light. Its edges soften, its color deepens into a dull red heart touched with the thinnest outline of gold. If the oil is nearly gone, you let it surrender at last and go out completely. There is no reluctance in this surrender, it is simply the natural end of a long, steady task. As the flame withdraws, color drains from the room, leaving only layers of darkness. The outlines of objects remain in your memory rather than in your eyes. You no longer see the chest, but you know exactly where your knee will be if you sit beside it. You no longer see the painted band on the wall, but you remember its height. You no longer see the bed frame, but you can feel with your body the exact point where you will meet it as you lower yourself. The room does not vanish, it simply becomes an interior space you navigate by familiarity rather than sight. You slip back under the blanket, feeling the mattress welcome you again as if you had been away much longer than the short walk down the corridor. The warmed hollow in the linen meets your body with a familiarity that feels both comforting and inevitable, as though you are slotting back into the place the night has made for you. The weight of the wool settles over your shoulders, your chest, your legs, pressing you gently toward stillness, like a reassuring hand resting lightly where your breath rises. In darkness, your awareness turns inward more easily. The shapes of the room recede, and what remains most vivid is the sense of your own body at rest. You feel the slow beat of your heart, a muffled rhythm deep in your chest, regular and unhurried, like a drum wrapped in cloth. You feel the gentle rise and fall of your abdomen beneath the blanket, the way the fabric lifts and sinks in time with the breath. You feel the subtle contact of your fingers against the linen, the way the fabric folds under them, the small pockets of air caught between skin and cloth. Outside, the last few drops from the roof finally fall, the impluvium's surface grows entirely smooth, its reflections undisturbed. The house has drunk its fill of rain, the cisterns below now holding the sky's gift in deep, cool shadow. The dampness that once clung to the air begins to settle into stone and wood and earth. Above, the stars continue their distant courses, untroubled by weather or roofs or human sleep. Their movement is too slow to see, but not too slow to be real. Down here, within these walls of plaster and stone and paint, you feel the domus settling fully into its second, quieter half of the night, sinking into a stillness that feels almost like thought turned entirely inward. You let your breath match that deep settling. Each inhale is a slow, easy gathering of cool air, bringing with it faint traces of stone and linen and the ghost of extinguished oil. Each exhale is a longer, softer release, carrying away whatever remnants of thought still cling to you, the last small concerns, the tiny question marks left over from the day, the half-formed ideas that rose when you walked through the atrium. You do not need to wrestle with them or sort them or decide their importance. You simply let each one ride out on a breath and dissolve into the wider dark. Muscles in your neck and shoulders that once felt like coiled rope now unfurl. Strand by strand, almost audibly in the quiet of your own perception. Your back sinks more deeply into the mattress, each vertebra finding its place. Your hands, no longer curled, lie open and quiet, fingers slightly bent in the relaxed curve of sleep. Even your jaw, often clenched, often holding words or tension unspoken, slackens, allowing your tongue to rest comfortably, your teeth to separate slightly. You are no longer preparing to speak, to answer, to decide. You are preparing only to drift. Thought itself starts to behave like the reflections in the impluvium. What was once sharp and distinct softens at the edges, stretches, and merges with other images. A memory of looking up at the compluvium blends with the imagined outline of distant hills, which in turn becomes the curve of a clay lamp in your hand, which then becomes nothing more than the sense of warmth in your chest. Faces, places, snatches of speech slide past one another, combining in ways that matter only for a heartbeat before dissolving again into softer shapes. You do not try to hold on to these formations, nor do you push them away. You simply let them rise and fall like small waves on the surface of a deeper sea. The mind, freed from its daytime tasks, begins to arrange and rearrange impressions without asking for your approval. A painted bird from the fresco in the atrium might tilt its head and listen to the rain, a column in the peristyle might appear in the darkness behind your eyes, its fluted sides turning slowly like something seen through water. None of it demands action. All of it is allowed to pass. In the final stretch of waking, you feel the night as a gentle weight pressing down from above, not oppressive but protective, like a vast hand cupped over the domus, over the peristyle and the atrium and the cisterns and the beds, over the lararium and the storerooms and the silent door to the street. All the spaces you walked through earlier now fold in around you like the layers of a cloak, the columns, the frescoes, the marble, the garden, the roof beams, the hidden pipes carrying water below, all quietly taking their places in a pattern that needs no adjustment, no decisions. Here, in the smallest nested layer of that pattern, on this bed in this room, your awareness slows to almost nothing. You have done enough wandering for one night, from atrium to garden, from shrine to sky, from waking to that middle pool and back again. The domus will keep its watch now, its beams and walls and foundations forming a circle around your sleep. The gods at the lararium will keep theirs, statues standing still while their meaning stays awake. The rain has withdrawn into the earth and the air, leaving the surfaces of stone and tile clean and cool. The city will stay where it is until dawn, no matter how deeply you sink, no matter how much you forget. You do not need to hold on to any of this. You can let go completely, trusting that the marble floor will still be beneath you tomorrow, that the impluvium will still wait patiently for the next rain, that the lamps will be trimmed and lit again when evening comes, that the doors will open and close at their appointed hours. The future does not need your attention yet, it can wait outside the bedroom door, in the corridor, in the atrium, in the streets beyond. Here, there is only this, warmth, and weight, and breath, and the slow, steady dark. Your last traces of waking thought loosen their grip and drift away as quietly as leaves letting go of a branch. You feel your body and the bed meet so completely that the boundary between them blurs, you are simply weight resting in a shape meant for you. The darkness behind your closed eyes deepens into a softer, more spacious black, not empty but full of the possibility of dreams. Sounds grow more distant, more generalized, no longer individual drips or creaks or breaths, but a single, gentle hum surrounding you. With a final, long exhale, you let your thoughts uncurl and slip away into the soft, dark water of sleep, where even the echoes of footsteps and the shapes of columns dissolve, where the square of sky above the compluvium becomes only a distant memory of light. The house holds you as gently as it holds rainwater and lamplight and shadows. The night folds over its roof, over your room, over your resting body, and you sink, unhurried and unafraid, into a deep, endless, peaceful night.